All right, welcome back to the new episode of the Deep Dig, a sports pod. I'm your host, Drew, with my other host.
What's up? It's Summer Break D.
And yes, you do see we are in a different location today. We are outside. Sorry, audio listeners. You might hear a little splashing in the back. We got the pool. We got the drinks flowing. But it's training camp, and we're chilling. We're looking at the news, and we're going to go through all the stories right now. So where should we start?
Let's start with the 49ers side of things.
Well, obviously, but there's a lot of that 49ers news we got to get to.
Bro, let's hop into the biggest story of the offseason besides the Jimmy talk.
Cha-ching.
Deebo Samuels
signing his contract. Deebo Samuels signed a 3-year deal worth about $75 million. Was like 56 around there, guaranteed, and 25 million a year annually. He is, I want to say, the 6th highest paid receiver.
And it ends perfectly. It ends right, like when he is 29, he could still get another huge contract like he wanted initially. So I think this works out. He could double dip, get paid twice. It's just like the kind of they've set the model with like the DK Metcalf contract. So it works out fucking perfect. I'm loving it. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's a hefty price to pay for a receiver, about the 25 mil mark. But it's a price we had to pay for that level of talent. So I'm not too mad at it. And I think we did great with the waiting out and trying to get him at a decent price. Just compared to the rest of the market, it did go down as the longer we waited. So Deebo, I think, was going in trying to be the top paid receiver, and we obviously would not pay him that. I feel good about where we landed. I think it's fair to him. It's good for us to even get out of it in 3 years if he's very injury prone and he's not living up to the contract. So I mean, I'm not upset about it. I feel really good. I'm ready to just get back and get him working with Trey Lance.
If I'm going to be honest with you, I think he deserved more. I think a guy like this is so special that you pay him whatever it takes to keep him in the building. And I'm glad we got him for like what I perceive as a bargain for someone who's a team captain, who is an offensive weapon, who just does all the right things and put his body on the line this past season and carried this team to an extended playoff run when they shouldn't have. So I'm all for it. I think it's like a perfect short run deal for Deebo. I think it's a perfect short run deal for the 49ers. I think both sides come across as, hey, like, I think Deebo Samuel comes off worse in this looking worse, just because the 49ers were telling him the whole time, you're going to get a deal. We want to wait. Don't worry, it's going to happen. And Deebo kept pressing, and he, made a bunch of statements, even though it wasn't him technically, he made a bunch of statements saying he wanted out of San Francisco. So I think he ended up looking a little bit worse for wear, but when it's all said and done mid-season, when he's racking up those yards and TDs, I don't think anyone's going to give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, it did get a little weird towards the end once he signed it, all the questions of the rumors come in now where they're asking him, oh, you didn't want to be a wide back, you didn't want to run the ball, and he has to kind of walk back these statements that leaked where he was trying to negotiate, and he has to really do some damage control with the fans and the media, and he has to say, oh no, actually I'm okay with being a wide back as long as it helps us win. So he really shifted from that he's negotiating, so he wants to be a wide receiver, now back into this team mode, team friendly person, which, I mean, you got to play the game. He did it, he got paid, let's move on. Not too worried about it. I think he's going to have a great season, and he's going to score a lot of rushing touchdowns for us too.
Yeah, and I think this doesn't affect his status in the locker room at all. I think there's a bunch of guys in there who are true professionals, and Trent Williams, George Kittle, Fred, all guys that are really stand-up guys who are actual leaders in the locker room and understand this is a business to it. And sometimes you got to do things, even if you don't want to do them necessarily, you've got to push that narrative that you would think about getting traded, that you do want out and you are unhappy. But, it is what it is. At the end of the day, he got paid. I'm sure he's happy with it. I'm sure Shanahan is happy with it. And I think Trey Lance ultimately is going to be happy with it. So let's go.
Yeah, and let's just move on to the wide receiver for the Niners that is making noise on the field. Brandon Aiyuk is getting a lot of great praise from his teammates, from the coaches, from the media. Everyone is saying he's came in this training camp a new person, a leader, and he's really showing off that talent. What are your thoughts on the absence of Deebo and what it's meant for Aiyuk and Trey Lance?
So I think this actually started last year. So behind Trent Sherfield, the guy that he had the most chemistry with was Brandon Aiyuk. And so you carry that into the off-season program where he was working out with Brandon Aiyuk and moving into training camp where now he's already gotten a rhythm and he's thrown it probably over 1 million times, I want to say, over this off-season and through the course of camp and mini camp and things like that. So I think that it's just going to carry on and you're going to see that throughout the play. And I think they already had chemistry from last season. And Aiyuk is one of those guys who's just so athletic and can, just like Deebo Samuel, who can break it at any point. I feel the same way about Brandon Aiyuk, where if he touches the ball, he's a playmaker.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on this stance since Aiyuk came into the league. I think Aiyuk is more talented than Deebo. Not saying that he's a better wide receiver, a better player right now, but I think his raw talent is more than Deebo. And I think when we drafted him, we did expect him to become a top tier wide receiver one. And we've seen flashes, and we've also seen him take a few steps back in the locker room and get in the doghouse a bit. But just seeing him connect on Instagram all the time with Trey Lance and having that one-on-one connection with him without Deebo there, I think just built this trust with Trey Lance and him. And we're really seeing him take on that leadership role as a veteran, even though he's not that old. And to see Jimmy Ward quote his quote today saying how he thinks Brandon Aiyuk has had the best training camp on either side of the ball besides Nick Bosa, because it's Nick Bosa, obviously. And he also said that he has not beat Brandon Aiyuk one-on-one yet this training camp. And it's all good signs, man. If we could get him going as on the outside along with Deebo on the outside, I think our offense is going to be pretty stacked.
Yeah, I'm super excited for the pass game moving forward. I think that deep ball is really going to open up the rest of the quote-unquote Shanahan offense. I think that's something we've been missing with Jimmy. And I think even when Jimmy did throw it deep, it wasn't – there was some that were just fucking horrible. But there was passes where it was like, okay, why are we not doing this more often? Because of Trey Lance being implemented in this offense. And the one thing that Brandon Aiyuk was tweeting about was, let me go deep. Let me go deep. And knowing that's Trey Lance's strong suit, of course you're going to gravitate towards that guy and want to push for that guy and be like buddy with him, because that's your strong suit. You know that's going to be your bread and butter. And if you really want to and build this rapport, this is going to be an unstoppable tandem. And I think we're in for a show this season. I think Kittle almost had 1,000 yards. Deebo had a fucking amazing season. Brandon Aiyuk is going to be off the chain. And the one guy that people were talking about before in OTAs was Juwan Jennings and his ability to get open. So we got some pieces, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about our offense. I think kind of heartbreaking news that Jordan Matthews is probably done for the year. I think he tore his ACL today. But we're still pretty deep in the tight end department, and the wide receiver section is looking better and better every season with the young talent that we're producing. As long as we can stay healthy with Aiyuk, Deebo, and Juwan Jennings, I think we're going to be able to throw it down the field a lot this season, especially with the mobility of Trey Lance and keeping the play alive. So I'm excited. I think there's going to be a lot of 20-plus yard touchdowns this year, way more than we've had in the past with Jimmy. So I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, and I think there's some guys waiting in the wings, such as a Danny Gray, who was kind of a star in OTAs too, talking about, hey, no block, no rock. So I think that also develops from guys like Brandon Aiyuk, where this is the culture, we do this specifically, and that's how you get playtime. And then once you get playtime, then you could show out. And that's exactly what Jawan Jennings did behind Kendrick Bourne. Hey, you know what? I'm here. I'm big. I can block. And once I get my time to shine, I will block. And eventually we're going to open it up and get some passing.
I think it's just been all good signs from camp of Trey Lance looking good, Aiyuk looking good, the offense rolling, the defense having their shine. They've been getting a little bit of interceptions here and there. I mean, we know they're going to be solid on that end, but to see the activeness in the training camp and to hear like, oh, Aiyuk and Fred Warner got into it, but now they obviously don't have beef. They were on Instagram together joking. It's just good to see a little bit of that competitive spirit come out. You don't really want a training camp to have none of that and just fall flat. That's when I think teams just you could tell they're not going to be special. To have some of that fiery competitiveness leading into the season, I think they're just itching to get onto the field for the regular season. So I'm excited to see like how we're going to look week 1 and how much this offense is going to throw at the Bears.
Yeah, and I think too, this is like the perfect time for the 49ers. They're coming in low key under the radar, even though they shouldn't be under the radar because they were in the NFC Championship game. But they lost to the Rams, who they beat twice in the regular season. You don't think they're licking their chops like, we could fucking do this, especially if we're adding in another element to our game that we haven't seen before. I'm just so excited, dude. Let's see. I don't want to get too ahead of myself as far as but I think it's the perfect mix of a dark horse team that has a winning history, and the vets on this team have seen what it takes to get to that point. So
yeah, and just Shanahan, we know that his teams thrive with that underdog title, and this is a team that shouldn't have that, but they still somehow have that label on them this season. So they're using that to their full advantage. They're going to go into every game saying that people doubt us. Nobody thinks they can do anything this season with a young quarterback. And that's just going to push Kyle to push this team even further. And I think that's what Kyle does, is get the most out of his players. When no one expects us to do anything, we kind of rise to the occasion like last year, and we just racked off a bunch of these wins that we were barely getting through. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that underdog title sticks to us throughout this season.
All right, you want to hop into the D-line now?
There was a lot of D-line movement going on this training camp already. Mo Hurst sadly got hurt, done for the season. So we had to fill his spot. We actually picked up Robert Nkemdiche, and we picked up Akeem Spence. So two guys that really didn't live, especially Nkemdiche, didn't live up to his first round status. Akeem Spence has just been a role player throughout his career, but we don't need superstars right now at this point. I think we just need role players. What do you think?
Was Nkemdiche the guy who wanted to buy a tiger or bought a tiger or something like that when he got drafted?
I can fact check that right now if you want.
Well, you fact check that, but yeah, no. I think this is a bread and butter of the team. This is what is going to drive the defense moving forward, with Bosa and Armstead as the staples of the team and the vets. I think it's going to be really fucking tough for anyone to either pass or run with a guy as big as Eric Armstead in the middle of the field. All he has to do is just hold his stance and just put his arms out wide because they're fucking huge. He has the wingspan of a center. This guy, I think he doesn't get enough love because he doesn't get as many sacks as a Bosa, but he's a staple in the defense. And then put him next to a massive human being in Javon Kinlaw. This defense is going to be a problem. That defensive line is going to be nasty, dude.
It's crazy to me. And just to reiterate on that fact that you thought he was going to buy a tiger, he actually said that he was going to buy a panther after the draft. I don't think he did it. I didn't see any news stories about it. It'd be tough to bring a panther into San Francisco. I don't know what the rules are there, the laws on those kind of pets, but
I don't know. But he was in Arizona, so that's no man's land.
Yeah, he probably just rleased it out into the wild.
Yeah. Well, I got released.
Like, I don't want you anymore.
So did you.
But yeah, it's crazy to me that the Niners looked at what we have in the D line room, even after the injury, and they said, you know what, we're ready to move off D Ford. We like what we have in house, and we're ready to let this guy walk. We'll take our L. It didn't work out. Let's cut our losses now and roll with some of these younger guys. And I'm not worried about losing him all. I thought it was going to be interesting to see him rotated in as a piece. But I think at that price, you're kind of like, okay, we're not paying this guy to be a role player. We wanted him to be a stud, and he's not going to be that, so let's just ship him out. The D-line room is pretty stacked. We got Bosa, Ebukam, Drake Jackson, Kandiche, Omenahue, Hassan Ridgeway, Hakeem Spence, Jordan Willis. And if Kinlaw can be anything, then this D-line is looking like one of the best units in all of football.
Yeah. I think this is the perfect, I think a couple years ago, the same thing happened with the linebacking core where there was just so many linebackers. It was so deep that teams were calling the 49ers before the final cuts were made because they wanted dibs on some of these guys. I think the same thing is going to happen with this D-line room. I think that, the league knows that Kasarik is, if not the top guy, one of the top guys that is coaching defensive line today. And anyone who's going to come out of this, get cut or, put on the practice squad, I think they're going to get swooped up pretty quickly. But I'm super excited for guys that are going to be able to rotate in. Like, dude, I am so pumped for Drake Jackson. I think this is the perfect scheme. You can play him in like the Aldon Smith role, strictly pass rush. Let's go. Pin your ears back. Get after it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what he does this season. Eric Armstead should stay in the middle of that defense no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
Just anchor him in the middle and mix Kinlaw in next to him as much as possible. I would say let's let Kinlaw only have a few snaps a game until we get towards the end of the season where we can really use him. But I'm excited. Drake Jackson is going to be in a more natural position than what he was in college. They're just asking him to run downfield and get at the quarterback. And I think he's going to have a lot of sacks while Nick Bosa is getting those double teams.
Dude, you seen that picture of Nick Bosa?
Oh, yeah, he's huge.
That thirst trap? Dog.
He's a large man.
Not just large, like, bro, he's superhuman. He looks like a legit like a superhero. If you were to like put that picture in like Photoshop, like I'd be like, damn, like he's not human.
Yeah, I'm not gonna turn my laptop to the camera, but it's actually my screensaver right now. I got both. It's just a close up though. Like no face, it's just the abs.
It's just his thighs and his thighs and calves.
His extra small 40 gold pants. But no, yeah. Are you expecting Nick Bosa to go for Defensive Player of the Year this year finally?
I'm 100% expecting it.
I'm expecting double-digit sacks for sure. But if you think about it, 1 sack a game is 17 sacks. Can he get over 20 this season? I think it's a possibility with that defensive line, Eric Armstead and Drake Jackson on the side. And then you put in those guys like Omenahue and Willis who can get at the quarterback too. I think it's a huge possibility that he can, at end of games, just rack up 2 or 3 sacks.
And I think, given the schedule that we play, starting off with the Bears, going to the Broncos, those are 2 teams that are starting off with brand new. Well, one has a brand new quarterback, but they both have brand new coaches. And so it could be a little bit disorganized. Hey, we're not really too sure. We missed an assignment here. Hey, we literally are going against 4 monsters right now. How do we, get this? He could end up getting a fast start like Chandler Jones did last year with 4 sacks right off the bat. And unlike Chandler Jones, where Chandler Jones died down during the season, Nick Bosa just stays on it. He's a freak, dude.
Yeah, this guy, his motor is unlike anyone else in the league, maybe Aaron Donald. But everyone just talks about like how they don't have to worry about Bosa. He's going to come in shape, and he's going to come in better shape every season. And that's why like the Niners have no problem paying him. He's going to get a giant bag, and he's going to go off this season. I'm excited to see how our defense looks as a complete unit because our secondary hasn't changed much, but Charvarius Ward is going to kind of bolster that secondary. Our linebacking core is always good. and that D line is just loaded. I mean, it's tough because we have so many D linemen right now that I feel good about. I have trouble narrowing it down to who should make the roster. I was talking to you before the pod, and I got it down to the 11 that I would like to keep.
Fuck.
But once you get into that, it's like, who are you letting go? Like an Akeem Spence who can rotate in, or a Ridgeway, or do we let go a guy like Jordan Willis who's gonna get picked up? I don't know. It's tough.
All right, so the first 2 games, Bears, Broncos, over under 4.5 sacks for Nick Bosa. You got that, sophomore slump, possible for Fields.
I feel
you got Fat Russ.
Let's ride.
Yeah.
Let's ride. I feel like the Bears are going to be a tire fire. I don't feel great about their situation, especially week 1. I think he could rack up 2 to 3 sacks in that game alone. And then to go to Denver, I don't know. It's gonna be tough because Russ is a little shifty when he's at his when he's in shape. I don't know how he's gonna be, how quick he's gonna be with that weight on him. But he has some receivers, he has some weapons. The line's not terrible in Denver, and they have a decent run game. So, I mean, he could get a sack there. I could see 4. I could see 4 sacks.
So you're thinking under 4.5 sacks?
Man, it's tough. If I had to put money on it, I would say under. Because Denver, I don't know what to think right now. Maybe after I saw them week 1 and saw how that offense actually is going to run, then I would say for sure over 4.5. But right now I'd say 4 is my number.
That's safe.
What are you thinking?
I would take the over just because I'm a gambling man.
Yeah.
But I think it's very much possible, especially with Justin Fields, who doesn't have anyone around him. His receiving core is dog shit. His line is pretty bad. He has to scramble. He's going to have to scramble around, dude. So I think he's going to get some sacks there. And then looking at Russ, no matter what you say, he's going to have some rust on him. He's going to be at least a little overweight. And then that's going to be a lot of pressure coming off of the Seahawks game for him. I think it's over, dude. I would say he gets the 5.
I mean, bottom line, I feel like we can start the season 2-0, a really easy path for Trey Lance just to start the season. Our defense is going to be the key to that. So I feel good about our chances. I mean, I'm excited for the season, man. That's all I'm feeling throughout this training camp is how excited I am to see week 1 and then see everything put together finally.
Oh, I'm so pumped. And if you're pumped, go ahead and hit that follow button. Go ahead and hit the like on this video. If you're listening on audio, we have a YouTube. If you're listening on YouTube, go ahead and follow us on any fucking podcast form.
Just throwing it out there, we are now on all platforms. If you listen to any podcast on any platform, we are on it. Stitcher, Amazon Music, whatever that one is.
Why'd you start off with the most obscure? Apple Podcast.
They know we're on Spotify and Apple Pods because that's what we've been on.
We appreciate you rocking with us.
Yeah.
Go ahead and show us some love.
We've had a fair amount of downloads on Spotify and Apple Pods, but we decided to branch out. If you listen on any of the other platforms, go ahead and listen on those to us.
Thank you.
But back to reality. You want to talk a little bit of Cardinals in division rivals?
What the fuck is going on, dude?
Okay,
what is going on?
After Kyler Murray got that clause put in where he can't play video games, where he had to study for 4 hours of film a week, everyone on the internet had a field day going off about the Cardinals and Kyler's work ethic. So Kyler did an impromptu press conference complaining about it. He listed all of his accomplishments, talked about baseball a lot, and the Cardinals decided to pull that clause out of his contract. What are your thoughts on them backing out of that specific part of the contract?
I thought it was hella weird, dude. All right, so he had already signed it. So he cool.
He for sure knew it was in the contract.
He knew it was there. So why get all offended about it when people start gassing you? You know what I mean? You knew that's what it was going to take to get that contract. So why get offended and be like, oh, this is disrespectful to me. I'm tired of it. Everyone's been talking all off season about it when it literally had been one day. And then you want to call a press conference about it. At least, take the heat for like a solid 3 or 4 days. Come on, dude. But, it is what it is. Like, they ended up backing down from it, but it didn't make any sense. If you want to make that point and stand on it. Hey, Kyler, we're going to pay you as a franchise guy. We expect you to be a franchise guy. What goes into it is these things. So we expect these things outside of our facility.
Yeah, I feel like the Cardinals, they felt like his work ethic wasn't there. And so they put that in his contract to kind of punish him, to discipline him, and make sure that they're getting the most out of their guy. And then Kyler feels bad, so we're going to pull out of it. Like, it just comes off very weak to me. If you want to discipline your quarterback, just stand by it. And you already took the PR lumps. Everyone already complained and flamed you on Twitter. So you got through the worst of it. During the season, if Kyler messes up, people are going to flame Kyler, not the Cardinals, on this specific thing. And now it's kind of flipped around where if Kyler messes up, everyone's going to blame the Cardinals because they're not holding him to that standard. So I think it's just it's a weird situation that the Cardinals put themselves in by even putting it in the first place.
And I think it was like, again, they didn't have to sign it if they didn't want to. But you know where they fucked up? They fucked up signing Cliff Kingsbury to the 5-year extension. And Cliff Kingsbury's agent is Kyler Murray's agent. And so he's looking like, okay, what about my other guy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And why sign Cliff when they just shit the bed in the playoffs? And you could say the same thing about Kyler. Why sign them both when, they ain't looking too good in the back half of the season? We have a Cardinals fan in our fantasy league, and I shit on him constantly because I know it's literally going to be half a season that you have to deal with the Cardinals.
And, okay, fantasy-wise, are you thinking Kyler's going to be a good pickup, or are you staying away from that?
From the first half of the season, I would pick him up.
You flipping him at the trade deadline?
At the height of the Cardinals mania, I'm flipping it.
I don't know, man. He gets a lot of rushing yards. I think it depends on where their record's at, because this is a team that I think is on the brink of dysfunction. Especially they added Hollywood Brown. I don't know. I was skeptical from the beginning about Hollywood, just based on his name being Hollywood before he even gets to the NFL, and he's Antonio Brown's cousin. To rely on that guy as a first-round pick and your number one receiver, man, it's a tough sell to me. And he didn't do great in Baltimore, had some drops. Whatever, you could blame that on Lamar. You could blame it on the system that they run. But he's already getting in trouble here. He got arrested for criminal speeding in Arizona. What do you think about that for them?
I mean, it's just another added distraction. But again, cool. I mean, it takes the heat off of Kyler Murray, But I think you had to do something to make him feel more comfortable. You went out and got his boy. But I don't think necessarily that's the greatest fit for Kyler is Hollywood. He's a smaller speed guy who has some drops on him. So I think what he could have used is, maybe another solid tight end. Like, just something that he can take a little bit of a pressure off of and just, hey, I'm going to dunk down.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't feel great about this roster. D-Hops is another year older. He was banged up last year, and we'll see if he can get back to that top 5 receiver form. But if not, they're really in trouble here because they lost. Yeah, they lost.
Christian Kirk.
They lost Christian Kirk, who
Jaguars.
Oh, B. There's a B around me. That's what you do. That's what happens when you have a pod outside. But no, they lost Christian Kirk, who was a piece to the puzzle. Rondale Moore there is still trying to work his way up in the offense. AJ Green's another year older. We'll see if he can repeat his performance last year. And then you add in Hollywood Brown, who is basically the same skill set as Rondale Moore and doesn't have the same hands as Rondale. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this team offensively, especially if Kyler breaks down towards the end of the season again.
Yeah, man. I think both the Cardinals and the Seahawks are in this spot where it's an arms race in the NFC. Last year it felt like an arms race in the NFC West. And this year they're like, well, it's still an arms race. We've got to load up. But it's like you look around and you're kind of behind the pack, buddy. Like, you kind of don't measure up to the Rams or the 49ers. So you've got to reevaluate. You ain't rolling out Drew Lock and winning games. You ain't rolling out, second half of the season Kyler Murray and winning games, dog.
Well, we just got to see if we're rolling out Trey Lance and winning games, though. He's an unproven still, and someone has to win the division. And right now, the Rams are the most consistent roster across the board. I think the 49ers can compete. I don't see the Cardinals and Seahawks competing with them or the Niners, but the Cardinals have had our number recently. It's tough for their defense to for the 49ers defense to cover a mobile quarterback, and we've always struggled with that. But I don't know. I feel like the rest of the roster isn't as solid for the Cardinals, that the Niners could have the edge this year, especially in Mexico. That's going to be a crazy game. That's going to be hype. I'm looking forward to that one.
And we got smoked by fucking Colt McCoy. So I don't know. Cliff, yeah. I think it's just all about matchups for certain guys. And I think for some reason Cliff just has an edge against Kyle. Yeah, whereas like Kyle has an edge against McVay.
But and we just gotta hope that we pull out at least one of these games and puts us in a position where we can beat the Rams again and win the division.
Yeah.